This story is kinda anticlimactic, but everyone I have told this story to thinks it is scary. In 2016, I used to work at a pretty janky hotel in a small town in Manitoba, Canada. I was a housekeeper, a maid, and I have good and bad stories from working at this hotel. I have submitted in funny subreddits about this same hotel. So anyways, one time at this hotel it was a normal day. We had finished cleaning the rooms and we were getting ready to leave. We took out the garbages to the dumpster behind the hotel. The way the hotel is set up, you can't really see behind the hotel, so they put the dumpsters there. My co-workers and I are talking and laughing while carrying garbage bags to the dumpsters. We notice a man in a car there. IIRC, he had Ontario license plates. He is throwing out bags of women's clothes, purses, and shoes into the dumpsters. We immediately shut up and the man got back in his car and drove around the hotel thinking we were done taking out the garbage. The hotel didn't provide a garbage cart for the housekeepers, so we usually had to make several trips. On our second trip, he saw us and circled the hotel again. We didn't have any more garbage, so we didn't get to see where he went after that. I was royally freaked out. What if this guy is a serial killer and was getting rid of victim stuff? I asked my supervisor if we should call the cops because it was so unsettling. He was just throwing out bags of women's clothes. What would we even tell the police? Our supervisor wasn't that concerned and told us not to call the cops. He wasn't even a guest at the hotel. I'm not good with names, but I am good at faces and would have remembered his face if he was a guest in the hotel. A few years later, I was talking to my uncle, who is a police officer, and he said we probably could have called the cops because he might have been involved in a break-and-enter and he was getting rid of the invaluable stuff. I wish this story had a satisfying ending, but it really doesn't. I never found out anything about the man. Never saw him in the news. I didn't look up missing or murdered women to confirm my suspicion. If I had, I would have called the cops myself. There were only a few times I was legitimately scared at work at the hotel. This was one of them. I had to leave my home due to being slammed by the recent derecho that knocked out our power. I live in Illinois. The connections from our house to the grid lines were completely severed in the storm, so we have been waiting on someone to repair them. That means that the insurance covered moving me, my sister, my niece, and 2 dogs into a hotel with power. It was just the 2 of us in an unfamiliar town, and I had been on edge since the storm hit. I feel like this is something interesting to note, though not important to the event. I've always trusted a dog's judge of character better than anyone else's, and this comes into play later on. Anyways, tonight I had to take the younger puppy, an Australian Shepherd named Buddy, out for his potty break. It was a routine thing that we do every night to ensure he doesn't make a mess in the room. He's usually a very timid dog, but he does like a lot of people. It just takes him a little bit to warm up to you, but he's very friendly. On the way to the side of the hotel building to let him do his business, I noticed 4 girls and an older woman ahead of me blocking the path. I had assumed they were on their way to the car when they had turned around and faced me and Buddy. I was tense. It was late at night. I was already slightly irritable because it was nearing my bedtime, and the older woman looked really sketchy. Just something about her put me off in a way I can't describe. Apparently Buddy had also felt the same way about her, because he paused just as I did when she suddenly changed direction and engaged in conversation with me. I noticed the 4 girls who had originally been going with the woman had left her behind as she kept me talking, trying to approach and pet Buddy, who was not having it. Our conversation went something like this. What is his name? How old is he? His name is Buddy, he's about a year old. Buddy was backing up slowly from her and I could hear him begin to growl quietly. I love dogs and they usually love me, but he seems shy. Yeah, he is pretty shy at first. I have my own Aussie in my car a little ways down. She's 5 months old and would be excited to meet him. At this point I was growing both unnerved and more irritated, just wanting to take the dog out for his bathroom break when I then hear him growl, this time much louder. He looked ready to bite her, afraid, which I could feel. Buddy has never growled at anyone, and this is why I found it extremely strange and unnerving. There was something wrong here, and both Buddy and I knew it. The lady noticed this and quickly backed off, giving a nervous laugh as she speed walked away, but turned around to add, "You'll see my dog soon." Then I can only assume she left to meet up with the girls that had passed her by. She seemed really disinterested and startled by Buddy's response, and I quickly took a look around before walking to the area in plain view to let him go potty. I never once let him out of my sight, and I kept an eye on my surroundings the entire time until we were ready to head back. I did one last sweep and didn't see her or any of the girls from earlier, and hauled ass to my room. I praised Buddy and gave him a lot of attention when I got in and took off his leash. I don't know what that lady's intentions were, but she spooked the hell out of not just me, but my usually happy-go-lucky, friendly little dog. It's safe to say that I may have dodged a bullet there. The worst part is, during all of this, she was being overly friendly. She even brought up an ice cream shop like she was talking to a little kid. I understand that I might look younger than most my age, but I know I don't look that young. Another thing to note is that when I did take Buddy to his usual spot, I did pass a car that did have an Australian Shepherd in it, and the vehicle was on. However, when I got a good look of the dog, I knew that there was no way that the Aussie I saw there could have been 5 months old. My family is very familiar with Australian Shepherds, and having grown up with them, I can definitely tell the difference between a 5-month-old puppy and a 2-year-old adult. And the dog in that car was most definitely an adult. She was bigger than Buddy, who was 11 months old, and the same size or at least slightly bigger than our older 2-year-old named Pepper. That car I mentioned, the one with the Aussie in it, it was parked the opposite direction of where the lady and those girls had walked off to. Either way, all of this spooked me in a way I haven't felt in years, and that's saying something. I messaged my girlfriend about it, and she brought up the fact that Australian Shepherds are regarded as rich people dogs and good breeding stock. I was also reminded that dog-fighting rings were also a possibility, but I highly doubt that was the stranger's intention. When I first started working for this particular hotel, I was aware of some prior disturbances, if you will. Well, as my normal night starts at 11 p.m., I have an unsettling feeling about the vibe in the building that night. Little did I know later that my gut feeling would turn out to be right. Waiting for the other shoe to fall, so to speak. I cannot remember the initial time this call had come out about a disturbance on the 23rd floor. Our dispatcher was an old military vet with a gruff voice came over the radio. I need 2 officers to the 23rd floor of the hotel for a disturbance in one of the rooms. The guests will be waiting. Unfortunately, I was not one of the 2 officers up there that night. 2 officers went up, and when they came back down, one collapsed to the floor convulsing. For the sake of this officer who collapsed, his name will be Tom, and his partner's name is Roy. When I ran to assist my fellow officer with medical bags for oxygen, he let out a yell I'll never forget, stating, "It's in the corner! It's in the corner! That room is messed up, man, it's in the corner!" I yelled out, "Tom, what hurts, man? Where are you hurt?" He could not say or get the words out. Tom was then transported to the hospital where he was analyzed overnight. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, what was in that room? Little did I know the details to follow later. Of course, my subjet is saying it was probably drug-induced and chuckling about the situation when we said something must be wrong about that room. When they went to look for the strange occurrence, everything seemed normal, and of course they chalk it up to him being on drugs or something. This is where things get weird. He clearly had no drugs in his system, as the hotel I was at has a strict zero-tolerance policy. So if this was the case, he would have been canned well before he ever came back. When Tom came back to work, I was dying to know what had happened. Well, Roy beat Tom to the punch. Roy stated that Tom had smelled a smell of rotting an egg, and I knew instantly what that meant. I'm not a paranormal expert, but I have researched enough to know this was something bad. Roy told me that only Tom could smell the smell of rotten egg. He said Tom stated he saw a cat run behind the curtain and ran toward the curtain and opened it up. Tom stated to me later in confidence he felt something rush him or into him, or through him, I guess. Tom stated he was fine until crossing the threshold of the door, and that is when Roy noticed he had become extremely pale. And well, the rest you know. Craziest thing is the doctors found nothing wrong with him. How? He was convulsing in front of me. What do you guys think?